going on, Jerome's? So the NFL owners are meeting in Orlando, Florida. Scenic, beautiful Orlando, Florida. Hopefully they go to Epcot Center later. But one of the main talking points was the hip drop tackle, which came to the forefront last year, which, I don't know, like, it's been around for a while. Just called the tackle. But last year, several players were injured after defensive players hip drop tackled them, where it is wrapping them up. The defender lowers their weight, and sometimes the offensive player's leg can get caught underneath the weight of the defender. And all the talk is like, hey, why don't you just put dresses on them, two-hand touch? They're making it the Pro Bowl, blah, 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 blah. They kind of have a point on this one, right? But the NFL owners did approve to ban the swivel hip drop tackling technique, and they voted on this unanimously. Pelissero, no surprise here, despite the NFLPA's objections, the NFL made it clear it wanted to call the swivel hip drop tackle what it calls the swivel hip drop tackle out of the game, and now it is. Expect more fines than flags as the league and coaches work to remove the technique. Again, I would be okay if it's more fines than flags, but that remains to be seen. Garofalo, Rich McKay, head of the competition committee, making it clear multiple times that there's a difference between a hip drop tackle and the swivel hip drop tackle. The defense player lifting himself off the ground and using his weight to fall on the offensive player is what they're working to eliminate. So I can't wait for there to be a high leverage fourth down late in a very important game, maybe even the playoffs, maybe even the Super Bowl, where a defensive player brings down a larger offensive player in the open field, and then all of a sudden the 50-year-old ref with cataracts has to decide in real time if it's a hip drop tackle or a swivel hip drop tackle. It's ridiculous. And Pelissero alluded to the NFLPA came out last week basically saying, No, we oppose the NFL trying to put in a rule to take out the swivel hip drop tackle. Now, it's one thing when it's casual fans like myself sitting at home, cracking a cold one, just like, hey, they're trying to take tackling out of the game, right? But it's a whole nother thing when actually the majority of defensive players have come out on social media against this rule change. A handful of offensive players have as well. And plus the NFLPA, which the Players Association, which beep bop up with boop, also represents offensive players. They're just like, nah, take it out, man. Don't ban it. Leave it in. All right, all that stuff. And Vikings players, the defenders definitely had some thoughts. So Harrison Smith on the gram. Just say they banned the tackle. Hip drop, it doesn't need to be included. Josh Metellus, competition committee, doesn't care about defense. Every year they make it harder for us to succeed. And this is actually on the heels of a report that the NFL is looking to increase scoring. What a quinky dink. Mekhi Blackman. Now we get to have a whole team seminar on what hip dropping looks like. And it's going to be funny because, I mean, the refs don't know what it looks like. Rich McKay put together a video like this is what swivel hip drop tackles look like. It just looks like tackles, man. Jonathan Grenard, penalizing defenders for trying to tackle a runner who has the option to go down to prevent injury. Yeah, it makes sense. That's actually fair. And this is from like New York Post put this out. The hip drop tackle, the whole explanation. Basically, usually a smaller defender in the open field. You see this a lot. Safeties versus tight ends. That's what happened in the Mark Andrews one. Well, that was a linebacker, but you know what I mean. But the grip and then the dropping of the weight and then the takedown. 95 times out of 100, it's no muss, no fuss, and it happens a lot. Like once you saw the highlight video, you're just like, we see this tackle all the time. And it does go back to the rugby tackles where that's how they tackle in open field rugby. And I mean, sometimes there are injuries. That's what happens. But McAfee also brings up a really good point here. The officials have never been trained to look for a hip drop tackle before. They have no way to practice it, and the first time they're going to be seeing it is in games. I think we'll see a ton of fines in the preseason, but now we'll get into September. You'll see it called almost ever. Oh, actually, no, that was Pelissero. Taking down the network that he covers and signs his paychecks. It's kind of funny, man. But yeah, it is frustrating. Now, if it's fines, fine, all right, but if it's actually impacting the game, That's where it gets a little bit rough. So you have the officials who are already under fire. They get another subjective call that is not reviewable, although they are trying to open up some review, but another unreviewable subjective call, which has high leverage in spots, 15 yards and an automatic first down, and you just give that to them late in the game. Just another one. But I would say best case scenario, there's not a lot of penalties. There is some fines, but players adjust as they always do. I mean, defensive players, they've been taking rules away for the past 2 decades, right? And defensive players adjust and they get back to ball. But hopefully it's a non-issue. Like a lot of people compared to when they implemented the horse collar rule, where a lot of people pissed and moaned then, but then people adjusted, and it's really kind of a non-issue right now. I mean, basically, like whenever anyone gets horse collar now, it's very inadvertent. But I think worst case scenario, it gets over officiated, and players in the open field routinely start going low. They start going Kirby Joseph on every single one because you can't go high, you can't wrap and then use your weight to bring them down anymore. So now they're just going to bite kneecaps. I think that's the absolute worst case scenario. But also, is it a spot where they revisit this? Because I could see the NFLPA not wanting to give up on this. But no, I guess we'll see. But your thoughts are thoughts. NFL bans the hip drop tackle. Again, can't really define it. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.